US Navy boosts Caribbean patrols as Venezuela increases military flights. That headline became real faster than anyone expected. At 6:19 a.m., the quiet waters north of Venezuela broke open. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford was moving on a steady course when two Venezuelan K-8 jets burst onto radar with no radio call, no ID signal, and flying dangerously low. They rushed straight across the front of the carrier group as if practicing an attack run instead of a harmless patrol. Inside the Combat Information Center, alarms hit hard and crews moved fast. Escort ships pulled into tighter positions, and every display showed the same thing. This was no accident. The jets were small, but the message was not. They were pushing straight toward the most powerful warship the US has ever built. And what no one on board knew yet was that this reckless move was only the beginning. The real escalation was seconds away. If you want to follow this confrontation moment by moment, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. What happened that morning wasn't just a close pass in open water. It carried weight far beyond the radar screen. The area north of Venezuela has become one of the busiest military zones in the region, where every aircraft is tracked the moment it rises above the coastline. US ships operate there to stop drug routes, watch military movements, and keep the sea lanes safe. For the sailors on board the Ford, this mission wasn't routine. They knew this stretch of water could flip from calm to dangerous in seconds. That is why the sudden appearance of two low-flying K-8 jets mattered. Venezuela has been using more military flights in recent months, often pushing the edge of international airspace. Analysts say these moves are part of a growing pattern. Small actions meant to show defiance without firing a shot. A jet flying too low or too close may not carry weapons, but it forces the US to react, and every reaction reveals something about readiness, sensors, and timing. On the Ford, everyone understood that. The ship represents the peak of American naval power, packed with advanced radar, aircraft, and a crew trained to handle pressure at any hour. So when two unannounced jets rushed toward the carrier group, it wasn't taken lightly. The crew didn't see small planes. They saw a test, the kind of gray zone move that governments use to send messages. And this message was simple. Venezuela wanted to show it could get close to a supercarrier and walk away with the footage. But for the US, the meaning was different. Any unsafe move could turn into a collision, a misread, or something worse. That is why every person in the Combat Information Center watched the radar with full focus. They weren't only protecting the ship, they were protecting the balance in a region where one wrong turn can spark a crisis. What looked like a small stunt was quickly becoming something larger. The question wasn't just what Venezuela was doing, it was what they were planning next. And no one on board knew the answer yet. The first two K-8 jets cut across the bow so low that the radar picture shook. Operators leaned in as the returns flickered. One technician adjusted the filter and said, "They're doing this on purpose." The jets were dipping right into the range that made tracking harder. A clear test of how fast the crew reacted. Then another alert hit. Two more contacts appeared on the southern edge of the radar, moving fast. Four jets now formed a loose arc around the strike group. The calm inside the Ford disappeared as voices tightened and hands moved to consoles. Launch the Hornets. On deck, two F/A-18E Super Hornets lifted into the sky, engines sounding across the water. Inside their cockpits, the pilots saw the picture clearly. Four unannounced jets at low altitude, unpredictable, and ignoring every rule of safe approach. In the Combat Information Center, a petty officer pointed to the shifting colors on the screen. "They're right on our detection edge." His supervisor didn't look away. None of this was random. Venezuela was probing. The first pair of K-8 seconds banked hard, passing so close to the escort destroyer that lookouts could see markings on the wings. Collision alarms sounded. The destroyer adjusted its course to keep the protection arc tight around the Ford. "Defensive posture only," the radio reminded. The Hornets shadowed but avoided any radar lock. One lock could be taken as a threat, and Venezuela seemed eager to create that moment. Infrared sensors confirmed the K-8 seconds were unarmed, but that didn't make them safe. A reckless pass could trigger automated systems or force a split-second decision that no one wanted. Then, one jet broke away. Instead of staying in formation, it turned sharply and headed straight for the destroyer. Its altitude dropped fast. New vector. He's diving toward the formation, an operator said. This wasn't posturing anymore. This was a push into dangerous airspace. The Hornets tightened overhead. The escort ships held their lines. Operators zoomed in as the jet dropped below 1,000 feet, then lower. Tension rose with every second. This kind of dive could flip the entire situation in an instant. Inside the Ford, the room went silent. Everyone watched the track come closer, faster, lower. One wrong move, and the day would change for the whole strike group. Now it's your call. If you stand with the US crew for holding their line, press 1. If you think Venezuela pushed too far, press 9. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when this dive reaches its peak. The lone K-8 kept dropping fast, its altitude numbers falling so quickly on the radar that operators leaned closer without thinking. Inside the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the alarm tone shifted to the one used only for unsafe approaches. The jet wasn't drifting, it was aiming. Above them, the Hornets held a tight arc, watching every move but avoiding any radar lock. One lock could be taken as preparation to fire, and the US wasn't going to hand Venezuela the reaction it wanted. They had to stay controlled while a reckless jet pressed harder toward the formation. For a moment, the sea felt strangely quiet. Then the K-8 rolled inverted and pushed the dive even steeper. "Inverted pass," someone called out. This wasn't a simple show of presence anymore. It was designed to force a response, to see exactly how close a foreign jet could get before the US answered back. The destroyer's CIWS rotated on its own, tracking the jet without firing. Its hum filled the room as the operator placed a hand near the override, ready but not touching. Everyone understood how thin the line had become. The jet screamed past the bow and pulled up at the last second. Deck crews later said they could hear the engine shift as it climbed away. But before anyone could breathe, another alert hit an electronic flash from one of the other K-8 seconds. "Paint for 2 seconds, an operator said. Not a missile lock, but enough to signal, we can mark you. It's no we getting mined 6. That tiny spike changed everything. The dive was already dangerous, but the electronic paint pushed the encounter deeper into gray zone pressure. Venezuela was gathering data, showing presence, and trying to trigger a mistake. The US wasn't giving them one. The 4 jets regrouped in a loose circle as if waiting for a reaction. The Hornets stayed overhead, silent and steady. The destroyers held their lanes. The Ford didn't turn even a single degree. Its stillness was the loudest message of the morning. For several long seconds, the two sides faced each other in the sky, each waiting for the other to flinch. The dive, the paint, the pressure, all of it hung in the air as the strike group stayed locked into formation. If you were standing on the bridge right now, what would you choose? If you support the US crew holding their line, press 1. If you think the dive deserved a stronger answer, press 9. Comment your choice and hit subscribe as we move into the next turn of this confrontation. Most of the crew thought the worst part had passed. The dive was reckless, the electronic paint was bold, but the jets had pulled away. For a few seconds, the radar picture settled and the room felt like it might return to normal. But what no one realized yet was that the dive wasn't the climax, it was the setup. A radar operator noticed something strange on the playback feed, a brief echo that didn't match the exact motion of the jets. "That's a reflection spike," he said softly. It wasn't a ghost contact, but it showed how the sudden altitude changes had forced the system to shift modes for a moment. That tiny distraction created the perfect opening for the electronic paint that followed. The timing wasn't perfect, but it was close enough to feel planned. While the Ford recalibrated, the Venezuelan jets weren't fleeing. They were repositioning. Instead of leaving the area, they turned in a slow, wide arc, almost as if they were waiting to see what the US formation would do next. The Hornets stayed in the air above them, keeping distance but ready to react. Below them, the escort ships tightened their lanes again. The air inside the Combat Information Center thickened. The crew began to understand the real twist. This wasn't a stunt by one reckless pilot. It was a coordinated probe, a way to measure reaction times, sensor behavior, and the discipline of the strike group. Venezuela wasn't trying to win a fight. They were trying to learn. On the bridge, the captain watched the jets circle and said quietly, "They're not done." His officers didn't argue. Every movement in the sky pointed to the same conclusion. The dive and the paint had been the opening moves. The next step was seeing whether the US would break formation or change posture. But the Ford didn't move. Neither did the destroyers. The strike group held course as if nothing had happened. That stillness was its own message. Moments like this test more than machines. They test people, judgment, and control under pressure. If you were watching this from the deck, would you stay steady with the strike group or would you call for a stronger answer? Press 1 for holding the line or 9 for pushing back harder. Then hit subscribe so you don't miss how fast this standoff escalates next. The Venezuelan jets didn't leave. Instead, they circled back and tightened their spacing, lining up for another run. On the Ford's radar, the 4 tracks formed a pattern that felt more deliberate than before. None carried weapons, but the formation alone signaled intent. They wanted to see how far they could push the strike group. "Stand by," the bridge officer said as the angles narrowed. The jets came in from different heights, one higher, one low again, 2 in the middle, creating a layered approach that forced every operator to stay sharp. It looked less like a flyby and more like a rehearsal meant to probe timing and reactions. Above them, the Hornets shifted into a protective arc. Radios stayed calm. "Keep visual. Hold spacing. No radar lock." They tracked the jets without provoking them, staying ready while avoiding any move that could be read as escalation. On the destroyer's screens, the jet that had done the earlier dive began dropping again. Even small changes in altitude mattered now, and operators leaned forward as the numbers ticked lower. The tension rose fast. One mistake from either side could turn this into something far more serious. Then the jets pulled into a tight diamond, a formation normally seen in training, not this close to a carrier group. Engines roared overhead as they passed low, close enough for sailors on deck to feel the vibration. For a few seconds, all eyes tracked them as they climbed out. "No course change," the captain ordered. The Ford held steady. Finally, the jets broke apart and drifted south without a word. No radio call, no explanation. Just a silent exit after a move bold enough to make any strike group brace. No one relaxed. This wasn't random flying. It was a coordinated test designed to read the Ford's discipline under pressure. Moments like this show more than power. They show control. The Ford stayed steady through every pass, holding formation while the jets tried to force a reaction. If you support the US holding the line, press 1. If you think the response should have been tougher, press 9. Drop your choice and hit subscribe as we move into the final phase of this standoff. When the jets finally disappeared into the southern sky, the Ford strike group stayed alert. No one inside the Combat Information Center relaxed. Instead, the crew shifted straight into review mode. Radar logs, sensor feeds, and timing data were pulled immediately. Every move the Venezuelan pilots made, every turn, dive, and electronic flash became material to understand the real intention behind the encounter. News spread fast. Venezuela's state media claimed their pilots had forced the carrier group to pull back, even though public AIS data showed the Ford never changed course. The US released only a short statement saying the group continued normal operations. But analysts knew what had happened. Venezuela had used 4 small, unarmed jets to stage a controlled probe, gathering information without firing a shot. For the Ford, the key lesson was that strength isn't just measured by weapons. It's measured by discipline when someone tries to provoke you. The strike group held formation through a dangerous dive, an electronic paint, and a tight second pass. They didn't shift or react the way Venezuela wanted. Still, questions lingered. If unarmed Kate Seconds could push this close, what would happen if the next aircraft carried real weapons? If this was a rehearsal, what was the follow-up going to look like? The Caribbean has always been tense, but this morning proved how fast a calm patrol can turn into a test of nerve. As the sun climbed higher, the Ford continued its mission as if nothing had happened. But every sailor knew the truth. They had just taken part in a confrontation that would shape how both countries acted in the region going forward. This wasn't just a flyover. It was a message, and both sides heard it clearly. Now it's your moment to weigh in. If you think the US handled this perfectly by holding formation, press 1. If you believe the response should have been stronger, press 9. Comment your choice, hit subscribe, and stay with us as tensions continue to rise.